Snow fell like silent ashes over Warsaw, blanketing the shattered streets with a deceptive softness. Winter had come early this year, too early, and with it, the quiet dread that lingered in every home. It was 1939, and though the city still stood, everyone felt the tremor of boots marching ever closer from the west. The newspapers insisted the army would hold, that Warsaw was strong and unbreakable. But newspapers did not have to feel fear. People did. Amelia Kowalska stood by the frosted window of her family's apartment above the old bakery on Praga Street, clutching a wool scarf tighter around her neck. Her breath fogged the glass as she stared toward the Vistula River, its long iron bridge dissolving into white mist. That crossing, the Poniatowski Bridge, had always been her symbol of freedom, stretching to a city she wanted to explore. Now, it looked like a skeletal guardian of a city preparing for war. Her younger brother, Tomasz, lay on a patched sofa behind her, coughing weakly under thin blankets. The cold gnawed at his bones. Their mother had used the last of the heating coal 2 days ago, but ration lines were long, and soldiers took most of the supplies first. Their father, once a proud railway mechanic, had been drafted and sent east. They received no letters, no messages. Only silence. "Amelia," Tomasz rasped, "can you read to me again? The story about the summer fields?" She turned, forcing a smile. The book's edges were frayed, its pages worn and yellowed, but Tomasz loved it. He craved the memory of warmth more than the story itself. In a moment, she promised softly. "Let me just check if the bread has risen." That was another lie. They had no yeast left, only stale crumbs saved from work at the bakery below. But lies were easier to swallow than hunger. Amelia stepped quietly toward the wood stove, cold and empty. Her hands shook as she touched the iron surface. The fear inside her built like a knot twisting tighter each day. From the hallway outside, frantic knocks jolted her thoughts. Her mother rushed to open the door, her apron dusted with flour she no longer used. A neighbor, Mrs. Witkowski, barged in with her layers of coats dusted white. "They'd bombed the rail yard," she gasped. "People are saying the worst is coming tonight. We must prepare." Amelia felt her stomach drop. "The soldiers?" her mother whispered. "No, airplanes." A chilling stillness filled the room. Airplanes meant devastation. Airplanes meant death from the sky. Tomasz whimpered, and Amelia rushed to his side, holding his small, cold hands. "How bad is it?" her mother managed to ask. Mrs. Witkowski shook her head, eyes glossy with fear. "The army says they'll defend the bridge, but they say many things." Her mother closed her eyes, inhaling sharply. She had tried so hard to keep fear away from her children's eyes. But fear had a way of slipping inside like icy wind through broken windows. "Amelia," her mother said suddenly, voice trembling but firm. "We must bring more firewood from the basement. Tomasz needs warmth." "There's hardly any left," Amelia replied. "Then even a few scraps will help. We must survive tonight." Survival. It had become their only prayer. The basement smelled of mildew and old coal dust. Amelia descended wooden steps with a lantern in one hand and a sack over her shoulder. The flickering light cast long shadows that danced across brick walls. The cold was deeper here, like a beast breathing against her neck. She found a few rotted planks and broken crates. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then she heard it, a deep, distant rumble above. The floor shook slightly. Snow fell from the ceiling in soft puffs. Airplanes. Amelia froze. The air thickened with suspense. Could they already be here? A sudden scream echoed from outside, then another. Explosions thundered from across the river, bright flashes illuminating the walls through small, barred windows. She dropped the lantern. It clattered, nearly going out. No, no. She sprinted up the stairs and burst into the street. The world above had become a nightmare painted in gray and fire. Flames rose from the direction of the rail yard. Sirens wailed through the night, and searchlights swept the snowy sky. The ground shook again as another bomb struck somewhere far but too close for comfort. Neighbors rushed through the streets, clutching children, blankets, anything they could carry. Back inside, Amelia, her mother shouted from the doorway, eyes wide with terror. But Amelia didn't move. Something drew her attention toward the bridge. Soldiers hurried there, shouting and taking positions. The Vistula River below glowed faintly from fire reflecting off swirling ice. War had arrived in Warsaw. And no one was ready. Hours later, the bombing subsided, leaving a suffocating silence behind. Snow still fell, heavier now, as though the sky was trying to bury the destruction beneath a white shroud. Amelia helped board up windows while Tomasz slept fitfully by the weak fire. Her muscles ached, but worry kept her awake. "We must consider leaving," her mother said quietly as they worked. "The city is not safe." "And go where?" Amelia asked, hammer pausing mid-strike. "Everywhere is dangerous now. Some families are going east, they say there are forests where soldiers cannot enter easily." Amelia shook her head. "Tomasz can barely walk. The snow is getting deeper every day." Her mother's eyes glistened. "Then Elo help us." A gentle knock came at the door this time, so soft it was almost missed. Amelia opened it cautiously. A boy stood there, a little older than her, wearing a thin military coat far too large for his frail frame. Snow clung to his hair and eyelashes. His lips were blue. "I need help," he whispered. "Please?" Amelia hesitated before calling her mother. They ushered him inside quickly, closing out the freezing air. He collapsed into a chair, trembling uncontrollably. "What happened to you?" Amelia asked. "Bridge," he gasped. "They need volunteers to defend it until reinforcements arrive." Her mother exchanged a terrified look with Amelia. "You're just a child," she whispered. "So are many of us now," the boy replied, his voice cracked like brittle ice. "If the bridge falls, Warsaw falls." He looked toward the window as if the bridge itself might call him back. "What is your name?" Amelia asked gently. "Mikhail." His coat looked empty without a weapon or proper gear. He must have abandoned something or lost it while running. Amelia suddenly felt ashamed. She was warm, now while he froze. She took her scarf and wrapped it around his neck. "You'll freeze out there," she said. "I already am," Mikhail answered with a weak smile that carried too many sorrows. Her mother offered stale bread, the last pieces, but he accepted it gratefully. He ate like someone who didn't know when he would eat again, if ever. "We have a spare blanket," Amelia said. "No," Mikhail shook his head firmly. "I can't stay. They need help. We've lost too many already." He pushed himself unsteadily to his feet. Amelia stepped forward. "At least rest for a moment." "If the bridge falls," he interrupted, "the enemy will cross the river by morning. You must be ready to leave. Save your family." The weight of his words collapsed into the room like snow from a breaking roof. Then he left, disappearing again into the storm. Later that night, as Tomasz coughed under the thin blankets, Amelia stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her mind replayed bombs, screams, and Mikhail's frozen eyes. She imagined him back at the bridge, standing guard, feet breaking through snow, fists clenched against fear. He was a reminder that childhood had been stolen from them all. She rose quietly and moved to the window. The bridge still stood, dark, looming, and determined. The river hissed with shifting ice, sheets cracking under invisible pressure. Amelia pressed her fingers to the cold glass and whispered a silent promise without knowing why. "I'll protect this city too." Somehow. Snowflakes drifted endlessly downward like memories falling from the sky, fragile, temporary, easily destroyed. But tomorrow, everything would change again. Because war never sleeps. Only waits. The next morning arrived not with sunshine, but with a gray sky thick with snow that refused to stop falling. The bitter cold gnawed through the city like a predator that never slept. Windows, streets, rooftops, everything was slowly being buried under a white, crushing silence. But Warsaw could not be quiet. Not today. Loudspeakers crackled to life somewhere across the boulevard, interrupting the eerie calm. All citizens are to stay inside their homes until further notice. Soldiers will defend the bridge. The city must not panic. We will not surrender. Despite the commanding voice, fear spread like frost through every narrow alley. Everyone knew words alone could not stop armies. Inside the Kowalska bakery home, Amelia hurriedly pulled on her old boots. There was no more firewood. The stove had gone cold again, and Tomasz shivered violently beneath blankets. His face was pale, lips tinged blue. Her mother pressed a trembling kiss on the boy's forehead. I will go to join the bread line. Perhaps they will allow us flour today. I'll go with you, Amelia offered. Her mother shook her head. No, you must find firewood. Anything that burns. Even broken furniture. Amelia nodded reluctantly. She wrapped a thin shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside into the unforgiving winter. The street was a river of misery. Women huddled close together near the bread station, rubbing their arms and stomping their feet to stay warm. Children clung to their mothers' skirts, old men leaned against crumbling buildings, coughing clouds into the air. A hunched man pulled a makeshift sled stacked with firewood branches, and Amelia wished desperately she had something like that. Even scraps would help. Even trash. As she turned a corner toward the market square, she stumbled upon soldiers digging trenches and erecting barricades. Their breaths came out like steam from an engine, their movements quick and precise. The closer she got to the river, the thicker the military presence became. Stop, a soldier barked as she approached the street leading to the bridge. His eyes were sharp beneath his frost-blind helmet. No civilians beyond this point. I only need firewood, Amelia replied. Maybe near the river. It's a combat zone now, he snapped, gripping his rifle. Go home. Stay safe. Stay safe? There was no place left in Warsaw where safety existed. Amelia lowered her head and walked away. Near the alley behind St. Alexander's Church, she finally found a pile of broken crates discarded beside a shuttered shop. Her fingers burned from the cold as she gathered pieces into her sack. As she lifted a heavy plank, she noticed tracks in the snow, small boot prints leading toward the riverfront. Fresh prints. Someone young. She knew instantly who they belonged to. Mikhail. Before she could debate with herself, her feet followed the footsteps as though the wind itself pushed her forward. The path led around the back of damaged homes, past muttered warnings from frightened neighbors. The rumble of distant artillery rolled like thunder as she reached a low stone barrier overlooking the riverbank. There he was, the boy from last night. Mikhail knelt behind a makeshift barricade of sandbags, clutching a rifle almost as tall as he was. He shivered but held his ground, eyes fixed on the bridge and its snowy steel girders. Several other teenage boys and older men stood beside him, a ragged line of citizens turned soldiers. Amelia stepped closer. You came back. Mikhail's head snapped toward her in surprise. His chapped lips broke into a faint, tired smile. You shouldn't be here, he said. It's dangerous. So is everywhere else. He looked at her sack. Firewood? We're freezing, she admitted. He hesitated, then motioned toward a crate near the sandbags. Take those pieces there. Burn them quickly. The worst cold comes tonight. She approached and stuffed several wooden boards into her sack. Her eyes flicked toward the bridge again. Will the enemies come today? Maybe, he answered. Maybe tomorrow. But they will come. How long have you been here? All night, Mikhail replied. And until we're replaced. Amelia stared at him, not a soldier, not a man, just a boy forced to stand between death and his home. Why you? She whispered. Why children? Because everyone else is gone. There was no bitterness in his voice, only tragic truth. Before Amelia could respond, a booming explosion echoed across the city, closer this time. Soldiers shouted. Ice on the river cracked. Amelia's heart punched wildly at her ribs. We'll be fine, Mikhail promised her with a shaky breath. Go back home. Take care of your brother. You take care of yourself too, she said softly. Mikhail nodded once. Then he turned and raised his rifle again, standing taller despite the cold. Amelia forced herself to leave before fear convinced her to stay. The walk back was slower, the wood seemed heavier with each step, or perhaps her thoughts made it so. Her mother returned from the bread line at the same time Amelia reached the apartment. Her hands were empty. Her expression said everything. No bread today, she murmured, voice hollow. Soldiers took the delivery carts before they reached us. Tomasz coughed again, a long, painful sound that echoed through the room. Amelia knelt beside him. I have wood. We can make the room warmer. Yes, her mother said quickly. Warm the stove. I will boil water for soup, we still have a few potatoes. A thin soup, barely enough for the three of them, but even hope tasted good when hunger was constant. As the wood crackled weakly in the stove and the room grew slightly less freezing, Tomasz opened his eyes and managed a tiny smile. Thank you, Amelka. Amelia kissed his forehead. Rest. The storm will end one day. At least, she prayed it would. That night, the war returned with a roar. Air raid sirens shrieked. The sky glowed red from fires on the western edge of the city. Explosions sent tremors across the frozen ground. Windows rattled. People screamed. Soldiers defended the bridge fiercely, and maybe recklessly, because the bridge was more than strategy. It was hope. Amelia rushed to the window but her mother pulled her back. Downstairs. Into the bakery basement. They grabbed Tomasz and hurried to the stairs with other terrified residents. Dust rained from the ceiling as bombs fell closer. The ground convulsed violently, the bridge area was under full assault. Prayers filled the dark as neighbors clung to one another. Then came a scream from above. Not human, metal. A twisting, wrenching groan of steel being torn apart. Amelia's heart froze. The bridge. It's falling. An earth-shaking crash followed, louder than anything before. The walls shuddered like they might collapse. The air filled with choking plaster dust. Tomasz cried into Amelia's coat. Someone yelled, the bridge is destroyed. They've blown the bridge. Blown? Or bombed? Who? The enemy? Their own forces? The chaos made the truth impossible to grasp. Amelia shut her eyes and saw Mikhail's face, his scarf wrapped tight, his rifle trembling in his hands. And now? He might be gone. Hours later, the bombing ceased. Dawn crept slowly into the sky, leaving trails of smoke rising into the pale morning light. People emerged from basements in cautious silence, afraid to see the damage. Amelia bolted toward the river as soon as her mother turned her back. She couldn't breathe until she knew. Snow crunched beneath her feet as she ran. The cold stabbed her lungs, but she kept going. When she reached the riverbanks, the truth hit her like the blast of a bomb. The bridge, the mighty Poniatowski Bridge, now lay in jagged ruins. Chunks of twisted metal jutted from the icy water. Stones, rails, and debris floated downstream, scraping against sheets of drifting ice. And scattered across the snowy ground near the barricades were rifles, abandoned helmets, and bodies covered in frost. Her breath vanished. Her knees weakened. Tears blurred her vision instantly. She stumbled forward, whispering his name before she realized it. Mikhail. Mikhail. A cluster of soldiers dragged survivors away from the river. Amelia ran up to one of them, a young medic, grabbing his sleeve. The boys who defended the bridge, where are they? He looked at her with tired eyes. Many didn't make it, he said quietly. We lost too many. The snow buried some. The river took the rest. No, Amelia's voice cracked. She scanned every face, every limp form carried across the snow, searching desperately for his. Then she saw him. On a stretcher. Pale. Still. His scarf, her scarf, wrapped loosely around his neck. Amelia's heart shattered. She stumbled to his side, trembling. No, no, please. The medic checked Mikhail's pulse and shook his head. I'm sorry, we couldn't save him. Her knees hit the snow. The world around her faded. Nothing existed but the boy who had stood at the frozen bridge for a city that barely remembered his name. A gust of wind swept snow over his still body, as if winter itself mourned him. Amelia brushed frost from his cheek. You were brave, she whispered through tears. You protected us. You mattered. Her tears fell onto his frozen hands. She had promised him he would take care of himself. She had promised she would protect the city. Now one of those promises was already broken. Green-gray smoke drifted over the ruined river. The sounds of mourning and panic echoed across the banks. And somewhere behind her, Tomasha's cough echoed faintly in her memory, a reminder that war was far from over. Warsaw had lost its bridge. She had lost her friend. And the real horror had only just begun. The sun did not rise the next morning, it merely struggled through the bruised sky, casting a dull blue light over a city wrapped in icy despair. The ruins of the bridge remained like a broken spine across the river, frozen pieces of Warsaw's hope scattered beneath gray waters. Amelia had not slept. She couldn't. Every time her eyes closed, she saw Mikhail's motionless form, his fingers curled as if still gripping the rifle he had sworn to carry. She saw the soldiers dragging bodies through the snow, too many to count. She heard the medic's voice, we lost too many. War had taken another child. And it would take more. Inside the small bakery home, Tomasha's cough had worsened. His thin chest rattled with each breath, and the heat from the tiny firewood scraps offered only a fleeting comfort. Her mother pressed another damp cloth to his forehead, whispering prayers for warmth and mercy. He needs medicine, Amelia said, her voice a whisper of desperation. Medicine is impossible to find now, her mother answered, eyes hollow. The hospitals are overflowing, and soldiers guard every supply. We have to try. Her mother's expression softened, but fear lingered underneath. I cannot leave him now. If you must go, do not go alone. Stay away from the main streets, they are targets now. A distant explosion punctuated her words, vibrating through the window. There was no safe place left in the city. But Tomasz needed help, and Mikhail's sacrifice could not be for nothing. Amelia wrapped herself in her coat and scarfless neck stung from the cold. She grabbed the last stale bread crust and slipped out into the frozen morning. The wind sliced across her skin, sharp as broken glass. Snowdrifts piled knee-high in some places. Soldiers pushed carts through the streets, barking orders, while families huddled against walls waiting for any aid they might beg for. Amelia's breath came in rapid clouds as she approached Krakowski Przyrodnicy, the main road, normally bustling with life. Now it was lined with boarded windows and burned-out cars. But in the shadows of the church steps, a small group remained, resistance volunteers distributing what little supplies they had. Amelia recognized one of them, Mrs. Witkowski's eldest son, Pyotr, his arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage. She approached cautiously. Pyotr. Please. My brother is sick. He needs medicine. Pyotr looked over his shoulder nervously before responding. If I had any left, I would give it to you. But everything we had went to the wounded last night. The hospitals, they were bombed. Amelia's hope dimmed. There must be another way. There is, Pyotr said, lowering his voice. Outside the city, past the eastern district, there is a church still standing. They say a nurse there is hiding medicines from the soldiers. But the roads, bandits roam them, and enemy scouts move in the forests. She swallowed hard. How far? 5, maybe 6 kilometers, Pyotr replied. In this cold, it feels like 50. Amelia clenched her jaw. I have to try. Pyotr reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver emblem, a badge of St. Florian. Take this. It was Mikhail's. He would want it to protect someone brave. Amelia's breath hitched. She took the emblem with trembling hands, pressing it tightly to her chest. Thank you, she whispered. For Warsaw, Pyotr corrected her. For those who cannot fight. She set off toward the city's edge, where buildings thinned into farmlands buried beneath thick snow. The cold punished every step. Her boots soaked through quickly, turning her toes numb. But giving up was not an option. She passed abandoned houses, their windows smashed, doors swinging open like frozen mouths crying for help. Stray dogs sniffed through rubble, ribs visible beneath shaggy fur. War starvation everywhere. Halfway to the eastern road, she heard the crunch of footsteps behind her. She spun around sharply. 3 men emerged from behind a collapsed factory wall, their clothes ragged, eyes sunken with desperation. One carried a crowbar. Another held a chipped hunting knife. Bandits. Her heart spiked. She turned and ran, feet slipping on the ice. Get back here, one growled. Her lungs screamed as she pushed deeper into the snowdrifts. The men gained ground, they were stronger, faster, driven by hunger. Just as fingers brushed her coat, a booming rifle shot shattered the air. A man cried out and fell. The others halted, swore under their breath, and retreated into the shadows. Amelia stumbled and nearly collapsed, but strong arms caught her. Easy, a voice said. You're safe now. She looked up into the face of a young woman, her blonde hair tucked beneath a worn military cap. A rifle was slung over her shoulder, snow dusting her leather coat. I'm Captain Elzbieta Brzezinska, the woman continued. Home Army. What are you doing out here alone? Amelia struggled to steady her breath. My brother is sick. I need medicine. Elzbieta studied her, then nodded firmly. Follow me. We have a safe house nearby. The safe house was a farmhouse restored into a hidden supply outpost. Inside, lanterns flickered, illuminating walls lined with food crates, bandages, and maps pinned with scribbled notes. A surgeon worked on wounded partisans in one corner, while others cleaned weapons or studied radio equipment. Amelia stared in awe. This was the unseen heartbeat of Warsaw's fight for survival. Elzbieta led her to a storage room. We have some antibiotics left. Enough for a child. Take them. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to thank you. Stay alive, Elzbieta said simply. And remember, Warsaw stands because its people stand. Even the youngest. Before Amelia could reply, a soldier burst into the room. Captain, scouts spotted enemy troops advancing from the south. They're regrouping near the river's ruins. Elzbieta snapped to action. Prepare defenses. Sound the alert. The farmhouse erupted in movement, boots pounding, weapons loaded, shouts echoing off the walls. War had found them again. Go, Elzbieta urged Amelia. Return home before the fighting reaches here. Amelia nodded, clutching the medicine tightly. She stepped outside, and froze. The distant skyline flickered with artillery fire. Smoke rose where the bridge once stood, and the rumble of tanks rolled through the wind like thunder. The enemy had chosen its next strike. And it was heading toward Praga, toward her home. Toward Tomasz. She ran as fast as her weakening legs allowed, the medicine tucked close to her chest. Snow whipped into her face, but she did not slow. The city streets grew louder, the boom of artillery, the rumble of evacuating civilians, soldiers barking orders. She pushed through panicked crowds as the enemy pushed deeper into Warsaw's bleeding heart. When she reached her street, tears burst free. Flames devoured the bakery. Her home, her entire world, burned. Neighbors scrambled with buckets of snow, desperately trying to extinguish the fire, but it raged too fast. Amelia screamed and rushed forward. Her mother emerged from the doorway, coughing, covered in soot, but Tomasz was not with her. Amelia grabbed her mother's shoulders. Where's Tomasz? Where is he? Her mother's face twisted with terror. He's still inside. I tried, but the roof, it collapsed. Amelia didn't hear the rest. She sprinted toward the entrance, heat searing her cheeks. Smoke clawed into her lungs. Flames licked at the stairwell. Tomasz, she choked out. Hold on. I'm coming. The ceiling groaned dangerously overhead, a monster ready to collapse. But Tomasz's faint voice came through the crackling blaze. Amelka. Help. She plunged into the fire, tears steaming off her cheeks. Inside, darkness and flame warred with each other. The smell of burning wood, spilled flour, and smoke clogged her throat. She crawled low, searching blindly through the haze. There, a tiny form curled beneath a broken table, coughing weakly. Tomasz. She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close. He felt so light, too light. A beam cracked above. Fire rained down. She shielded him, heart pounding violently. The exit seemed miles away as the walls groaned and buckled. She stumbled toward the light, one step, another. Almost there, she whispered. Stay with me. A final surge, she burst through the doorway just as the building roared and collapsed inward behind them. Neighbors rushed to help. Her mother sobbed with relief as she took Tomasz into her arms. Amelia fell to her knees on the frozen street, coughing smoke, vision blurring. The fire reflected in her tear-filled eyes, the home where she was born now reduced to ashes and embers. But Tomasz was alive. She clutched the medicine bottle, scraped but unbroken, in her soot-blackened fist. Michael's emblem of St. Florian lay warm against her chest. Elżbieta's words echoed. Warsaw stands because its people stand. Amelia tightened her jaw, breathing through pain and smoke. They will not take us, she whispered fiercely. Not while she still had breath. Not while children still had futures to fight for. The snow continued falling, soft, silent, relentless, as flames consumed the past and war forced the future into motion. And somewhere beyond the smoke and fire, the enemy advanced closer. Snow fell thicker than ever, each flake a silent witness to chaos. The bakery, once filled with warmth and the comforting smell of bread, was now a blackened skeleton crackling beneath the winter wind. The orange glow of its burning timbers flickered against Amelia's face like dying hope. But Tomasz was alive. His weak breathing matched the trembling of her own hands as she fed him the precious medicine Captain Elżbieta had given her. Small sips, she murmured, lifting the spoon to his lips. His eyelids fluttered, but he swallowed. Her mother wrapped him in blankets scavenged from a neighbor who still had a roof over their head. We must go, her mother whispered. The soldiers said this area will be evacuated by nightfall. The front line is too close. Evacuated. Displaced. Homeless. Amelia's throat tightened. Go where? Her mother looked toward the eastern horizon, where smoke rose in endless plumes. Away from the fighting. To the countryside. There are families taking in refugees. A distant explosion shook the street, muffled but too close. Time was a luxury none of them had. With Tomasz bundled safely against her chest, Amelia grabbed what little remained, scorched bread, a cracked water flask, and the emblem of St. Florian still warm from her heartbeat. As they joined the column of evacuees trudging eastward, Amelia turned for one last look at the charred ruins of their old life. Goodbye, she whispered to the ashes. The roads out of Warsaw were rivers of fear. Families huddled together, bundled in threadbare coats and scarves, dragging sleds piled with blankets and pots. Some pulled old dairy carts filled with anything salvaged from homes now in flames. Others carried nothing but grief. Artillery thundered in the distance, rolling like an angry god across frozen plains. Every boom made people flinch and children cry. Tomasz rested in Amelia's arms with his head against her shoulder, skin still fever-warm. The medicine was helping, his breathing was smoother, but he remained frighteningly weak. They stopped twice to rest while food was distributed along the road. Amelia gave most of her share to Tomasz. Her mother protested, but Amelia shook her head. "He needs strength to keep living," she said. "And you do not?" her mother whispered sadly. Amelia didn't answer. By dusk, soldiers herded the refugees toward a temporary camp on a snowy hillside, a field of canvas tents flapping under winds that tasted of steel and gunpowder. Inside their assigned tent, she built a tiny fire from scrap wood, hands trembling from fatigue. Tomasz slept curled tightly, a soft flush returning to his pale cheeks. Her mother sat beside them, eyes reflecting exhaustion and fear. "Amelia, thank you. Without you, Tomasz would be—" "Don't say it," Amelia interrupted quickly, eyes burning. "He will live. We will all live." But the shadows of doubt crept inside anyway, disguised as silence. Outside, soldiers shouted orders. Trucks rumbled. The frontline screams grew louder, the war was chasing them, unraveling every hope they clung to. Amelia closed her eyes, trying to banish the image of Mikhail lying still beneath blowing snow. "I should have stayed. I should have helped him. Maybe he would have survived." Guilt gnawed like hunger. Her fingers found the emblem again, the metal cold now, like the boy who once carried it. "I will not fail again," she whispered into the darkness. "I will protect who is left." Suddenly, a shrill whistle cut through the camp. "Get down!" Amelia dropped to the ground instinctively, clutching Tomasz as spotlights flashed across the snowy field. In the sky, black silhouettes. Airplanes. Bombers. The first explosion hit the far end of the camp, a violent burst of fire and screams. The ground jolted as tents ripped apart and bodies flew. Snow turned black with smoke and red with blood. More bombs whistled down. Soldiers shouted, "Spread out! Take cover!" Amelia's mother grabbed their arms. "Run!" They stumbled through chaos, people scattering like terrified birds. Fire sprayed through the night. Shrapnel whizzed past like metal hail. Amelia's ears rang. Her legs burned. Snow melted into slush beneath explosions. Then, a blast erupted just meters away. Amelia felt herself thrown sideways, Tomasz nearly slipping from her grasp. Her mother screamed and disappeared in the cloud of smoke. "Mama!" Amelia shouted, eyes wide with terror. She scrambled frantically, searching, coughing, calling. But smoke swallowed everything. Silhouettes of screaming refugees darted past. Soldiers dragged injured comrades through the mud and flame. Another explosion. Amelia felt something wet on her cheek, not snow. Blood. She tightened her grip on Tomasz. "Mama! Where are you?" Then, a hand seized her arm. She spun around to strike but stopped. It was Captain Elżbieta. "You shouldn't be here," the captain yelled over the chaos. "Where is your mother?" "I don't know." Amelia cried. "We got separated." Elżbieta scanned the burning tents. "We can't stay. Follow me, we'll find her once the attack stops." Orders barked through the night. "Fall back. Secure the civilians. Enemy tanks approaching the outskirts." Elżbieta pulled Amelia toward a defensive trench carved into the snow. They slid inside just as another bomb obliterated the tent where they'd taken shelter moments before. Amelia clutched Tomasz so tightly he whined in his sleep. "It's okay," she sobbed, rocking him. "I'm here." Across the trench, soldiers fired toward moving shapes emerging from the tree line, armored silhouettes with glaring lights cutting through the storm. Enemy troops. War had finally caught them. Elżbieta barked commands, eyes fierce and unwavering. "Protect the civilians. Hold the line." Amelia stared at the captain, this woman who risked her life for strangers. "You saved me again," Amelia whispered. Elżbieta turned, her face softened by firelight. "You don't give up. That's why you deserve saving." Before Amelia could speak, another soldier slid into the trench. "Captain! We need to evacuate east. Reinforcements won't arrive in time." Elżbieta cursed under her breath, then gripped Amelia's shoulders firmly. Listen to me, take your brother and head toward the forest. Follow the slope downward. That path will lead you away from the fighting. Go now. Don't look back. But my mother. We will find her, Elzbieta promised. But not if you die here first. Gunfire crackled sharper. Snow burst around them from stray bullets. With a breaking heart, Amelia nodded. She wrapped Tomasz tighter, whispering his name. Wake up, little one. We have to go. He whimpered, but his eyes opened, weak yet alive. Elzbieta boosted them out of the trench. Run. And stay hidden. Amelia ran, stumbling, sliding, down the snowy slope toward the dark forest. Smoke blotted out the stars overhead. Flames licked the sky behind her, consuming the last illusion of safety. Halfway down, she stopped, chest heaving, tears freezing to her skin. She looked back. The camp burned like the bakery before it, suffering chasing suffering. She could barely make out Elzbieta firing into the night, defending a land crumbling under boots of war. Amelia swallowed a sob. We'll come back, she vowed. We'll find Mama. We'll find a way to stop this. For Tomasz. For Mikhail. For everyone torn from home. She turned and plunged into the darkness of the trees. The forest was a labyrinth of white and shadow. Branches clawed at her coat like skeletal hands. Tomasz shivered violently, and Amelia pressed him closer to share what little warmth she had. We're almost safe, she lied, though she did not know where safety might exist anymore. Hours dragged like years. The sounds of battle faded behind them, replaced by the eerie quiet of winter woods. Owls hooted. Ice cracked beneath their feet. The moon peeked through branches like a watchful eye. Tomasz lifted his head. Amelka, is Mama okay? Amelia paused, breath trembling. She could not cry, not now. She's strong, she said softly. She'll find us. But what of the soldiers? No, Amelia interrupted firmly, stroking his hair. Mama will survive. Because she knows we need her. Tomasz nodded, reassured enough to rest his head again. Amelia walked on, until a flicker of light ahead stopped her mid-step. A small cabin. Chimney smoking. Life in the middle of nowhere. Hope. She approached carefully. As she neared, a voice called out from the doorway. Who goes there? Speak, or I'll shoot. Amelia froze, eyes wide, heart galloping. The figure stepped into the moonlight, a man in a heavy coat, rifle raised but eyes tired. We're refugees, Amelia managed, throat raw. My brother is sick. We have nowhere else to go. The man stared at them, then lowered his weapon. Come inside, he said quietly. No one should die in this cold. Amelia exhaled, relief crashing through her. She stepped toward the cabin. Not knowing that crossing that threshold would change everything. Yet again. The wind howled like a desperate animal against the frozen windows of the abandoned bakery. Inside, the faint warmth of a tiny coal furnace flickered, casting trembling shadows of the four people huddled close, Natalia, Marek, Jakub, and little Anya wrapped in all the blankets they had found on their way. It had been hours since they escaped the soldiers on the frozen bridge. Snow still dusted their coats. Their breaths trembled like smoke. The silence that followed felt thick enough to break. Marek was the first to speak. We cannot stay here long, he murmured, rubbing his gloved hands. Patrols will be passing again by morning. Jakub nodded grimly. But we can't keep running blind. We need a plan. Natalia held Anya tighter, brushing the girl's hair gently with trembling fingers. The cold had dulled her voice, but determination heated every word she spoke. We must find a way to cross that bridge, she said. Even if it means not returning. Anya blinked sleepily. Will we go to Mama soon? Natalia smiled, though her eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. Yes, my love. We will go to Mama. Jakub looked down at the floorboards, his expression conflicted. The city's changing every day. And the winter, he paused as the gust outside roared again. The winter is helping them. Nobody can survive long out there. Marek's jaw tightened. Then we will be the ones who do. For a moment, silence returned, until suddenly, behind the counter, something scraped. All four froze. Marek stood up slowly, pistol drawn. Another scrape came, then a soft knock on the wall from inside the pantry room. Jakub raised his lantern. Who's there? The knock sounded again, 3 short taps, a pause, then one more. Marek lowered his gun and exhaled. It's a signal. He pushed aside an old shelf and revealed what none of them expected, a hidden door leading beneath the building. Jakub stared. You knew this was here? No, Marek shook his head, surprising even himself. But I've heard rumors of a network under Warsaw. Tunnels, safe routes. Natalia's heart began to race with a new kind of hope. Marek tapped the door back with the same pattern he'd heard. The secret door cracked open, and an elderly man peeked out, his white beard frosted with ice crystals, eyes sharper than steel. You're late, the man whispered firmly. Come. Quickly. Too cold, too tired, too desperate to refuse, they followed. Beneath the city. They descended into the hidden passage lit by sparse lanterns. Brick walls curved tightly around them, dripping with condensation despite the brutal cold above. The floor echoed with each step, reminding them they had entered a place forgotten by the world. Behind them, the old man shut the door and locked it with 3 different bolts. Welcome to the root cellar, he said as he shuffled past them. One of the last places where Warsaw's heart is still beating. They walked deeper, and suddenly the tunnel widened into a vast chamber full of people, dozens at least. Civilians like them. The young, the frail, the injured. A small infirmary in one corner. A cooking pot steaming atop a brick furnace. Children wrapped in patched coats playing silently with carved wooden toys. A hidden city of survivors. Natalia gasped. How long have you been here? A long time, he replied. Ever since the soldiers sealed the district and turned the bridge into a border. Marek exchanged a cautious look with Jakub. You help people escape? The man smiled, a tired, sorrowful smile. We try. Not everyone makes it. Jakub swallowed. The room suddenly felt colder. But you're alive, the man continued. Which means you have something to fight for. He turned his gaze to Natalia. And she, he looked down at Anya, whose curious eyes stared back. She is hope itself. He introduced himself as Stanislav, a former engineer who once helped design parts of the very bridge that now stood as a barrier trapping them inside a frozen prison. We've dug for months, he explained, placing a hand on a carved map along the wall. And we believe we can reach the other side. Under the river. Marek's eyes widened. A tunnel? Under the Vistula? In winter? Stanislav nodded, his beard bobbing with emotion. Yes. But the ice has thickened the riverbed. And the soldiers are guarding everything above. He sighed. The only route left is below. Jakub studied the map carefully. But if the river shifts, the tunnel could collapse. It could, Stanislav admitted. But staying here will collapse your future. Natalia hugged Anya tightly, torn between fear and fragile hope. How soon can we go? Stanislav looked around, lowering his voice. Our next passage attempt is tomorrow night. The final decision. The root cellar offered them food, thin soup and stale bread, but to their frozen bodies it tasted like a royal feast. Anya finally fell asleep after a real meal, curled beside a small furnace, her cheeks rosy again. Natalia kissed her head and whispered the same promise she'd spoken every night since the war began. You will grow flowers again. Jakub sat sharpening his knife. We'll need to carry what little we have. That's all. Marek stood near the entrance of the chamber, staring at the lantern light dancing on the walls. He had been silent too long. Natalia approached him quietly. "What is it?" His breath clouded white in the cool air. "I keep seeing their faces," he murmured. "The ones we couldn't help. And the bridge, every time we step onto it, we're gambling with death." Natalia placed a hand gently on his arm. "We don't carry the whole world, Marek. Just our part of it." He turned to her, eyes heavy with exhaustion and something deeper. "And our part of it, is that child," he said softly, glancing back to Anya. Natalia nodded. "And she needs us to be brave." After a long moment, Marek exhaled and stood straighter than before. "We'll try the tunnel," he said with conviction. Jakub looked up. "It's decided then." A night of thin sleep. The root cellar dimmed as lanterns were extinguished one by one. The chamber soon hummed with quiet breathing, like a giant beast asleep under the snow. Natalia lay awake, watching frost slowly claim the edges of the bricks above. Her heart pounded with fear of what might await in the river's cold darkness. But she clung to one thought. Every step forward was one step closer to warmth. To reunion. To life past the war. Beside her, Marek slept with one hand resting protectively over his pistol. Jakub lay with his eyes barely shut, ever alert. Anya murmured in her dreams, reaching out for something, or someone, far away. Natalia caught her little hand before she could wake in fear. "I'm here," she whispered. For the first time in weeks, Anya smiled in her sleep. Outside, winter continued its merciless siege on the surface world. But down here, under stone and earth and quiet courage, hope smoldered, refusing to die. Tomorrow night would change everything. Whether they survived. Or the river swallowed them whole. Morning never truly came in Warsaw anymore. The sky remained a heavy gray shroud, as if daylight itself feared the winter. In the root cellar, cold breaths formed clouds as people slowly awakened. Lanterns flickered to life again. Quiet murmurs filled the chamber, fears whispered, hopes guarded like fragile embers. Natalia rubbed her hands briskly to chase away the numbness. She helped Anya into the thickest layers they had left. Marek checked the sharpness of his knife and the pistol hidden beneath his coat. Jakub adjusted his boots, tightening the worn laces until they nearly snapped. Tonight, they would crawl beneath the frozen Vistula River. Tonight, they would gamble everything. Stanislav shuffled toward them, a roll of papers tucked beneath his arm, frost delicately clinging to his beard. "You slept?" he asked. "We closed our eyes," Marek replied quietly. "That's all we can afford." Stanislav understood all too well. "Come," he said. "There is something you must see before you go. The forgotten workshop." He led them down a narrow hall branching from the main chamber. The air grew colder with every step, until their breaths felt like knives inside their chests. A door creaked open into a small workshop where lanterns illuminated tools, coils of thick rope, and bundles of woolen cloth. "This," Stanislav said, patting a large wooden crate, "was hidden here since the bridge's construction. My colleagues and I prepared these in case the city ever needed to escape." He opened the crate. Inside were 4 insulated coats, padded with fur and lined with waxed fabric. "Made for river work," he explained. "They resist water and keep heat trapped." Natalia touched one and gasped softly, a coat warmer than anything she had worn in months. "Why keep them hidden?" "Because the world never believes darkness will swallow it whole," Stanislav said. "Until it does." Jakub looped extra cord around his belt. "And tools?" Stanislav's eyes twinkled with a hint of pride. "We are Polish. We always have tools." He handed them small chisels, foldable shovels, and wooden planks. "If the tunnel cracks," he warned, "you must brace the ceiling quickly. If water leaks, you must move faster." Marek nodded grimly. "Understood." Stanislav glanced toward Anya. "For her sake," he said solemnly, "you must not stop." Natalia took his hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." His reply was simple. "May the river remember mercy." A day of waiting. The hours before nightfall passed painfully slow. Every sound seemed louder, every footstep, every cough, every rattling pot. Merrick couldn't stay still. He paced near the tunnel entrance, constantly checking the time by the dim lantern's burn. Jakub sharpened his knife again and again until Merrick finally snapped. "It's sharp enough. You'll wear it to dust." Jakub exhaled. "I need something to do. If I think too much, fear will eat me alive." Natalia tried to distract Anya by teaching her how to wrap wool around her hands, making tiny mittens with scraps. The little girl giggled and showed them proudly. "Look, Mama. Like paw of kitty." Natalia kissed her forehead. "Yes, my snow kitten." But even Anya sensed something heavy in the air, something waiting. When the sun should have been highest, though it barely made itself known, Stanislav called everyone together. Survivors gathered, forming a silent ring around the small family. "We send 4 brave souls tonight," he announced. "For who will carry hope beyond the ice?" An elderly woman stepped forward with a basket. Inside were small wooden medallions carved with a phoenix rising from flames. "A Warsaw symbol," she explained. "Take one. It brings courage when darkness grows teeth." She hung a medallion around Anya's neck first. "For the smallest hope burns the brightest," she said. Marek, Jakub, and Natalia each received one as well. Natalia whispered, gripping hers tight. "Rise again." The descent. Night fell like a black curtain. Marek's heart pounded as Stanislav unlocked the heavy gate at the end of the chamber. A bitter draft poured through, a warning of deeper cold. Beyond lay a steep decline cut into the earth, rails from an old construction cart, cracked wooden beams, rusted support arches. It felt abandoned and forbidden. "This passage leads toward the riverbank," Stanislav whispered. "Beyond that, the tunnel continues beneath the water." "How far?" Jakub asked. "Long enough," Stanislav replied. "But short enough if you don't stop." Natalia squeezed Anya's hand. "We won't stop." Stanislav nodded, though his eyes shone with worry. "If you reach the other side," he said, voice trembling with something like hope, "you will see a ladder leading up into a ruined warehouse. Look for a door marked with a chalk star. There are people like us there. They will help you disappear into the countryside." "And if we fail?" Marek asked. Stanislav's silence gave the only answer needed. "Under the Vistula." The tunnel narrowed quickly, forcing them to crouch. The sound of dripping water echoed through the tight stone corridor. Anya walked between Marek and Natalia, holding their hands tightly. Drip. 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 Each drop sounded like a countdown. Jakub took the lead, lantern held low. The flame flickered madly in the frigid draft flowing above their heads. Soon, the floor sloped downward even more, and the air became wetter. They reached a section where thick icicles hung like jagged fangs. Marek snapped one off and tossed it aside, muttering. "The river is right above us." The weight of tons of frozen water pressed down invisibly, like crushing hands waiting for the smallest crack. Natalia's breath tightened. "Keep moving," she whispered to herself. Creeping danger. They crawled deeper, and the tunnel began to tremble with the distant rumble of shifting ice overhead. Jakub paused suddenly, raising his hand. Marek froze. Natalia hugged Anya close. A harsh clatter echoed through the stone, steel striking stone. Not ice. Not water. Voices. From behind them. Soldiers. Jakub cursed under his breath. They discovered the entrance. Marek's eyes burned with urgency. "We need to go faster." The tunnel forced them to crawl on hands and knees. Their coats scraped rock, fingers numb, knees bruised. Lantern light bounced wildly as they pushed forward. Then, crack. A thin line of water streamed from above, sprinkling Jakub's shoulder. He stared at the ceiling. "We don't have much time." The cold crush of fear. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The lantern flame shrank as if afraid. Marek pushed Anya gently forward. You're doing so well, he whispered. My hands, cold, Anya whimpered. I know, Natalia said, stroking her cheek. Hold on to my scarf. Behind them, muffled shouts grew clearer, boots striking rock, metal scraping walls. They're coming, Jakub said. Suddenly, another crack above. A chunk of ice fell, bursting into crystals on the floor. A spray of freezing droplets hit Natalia's face. Marek's voice hardened. Move. The point of collapse. Jakub reached a support beam that had partially splintered. Water dribbled through widening seams. We'll have to brace it, he said. Not enough time. Marek barked. Jakub grabbed a plank and shoved it beneath the weak spot. Then give me time. Marek cursed, but held his position, guarding the others with his pistol drawn. Natalia shielded Anya, whispering soft prayers into her hair. Finally, the makeshift brace held. Go. Jakub gasped. They scrambled, ice cracking around them, river groaning above like a monster waking from slumber. Light at the end. Just when their arms and legs felt ready to give out, Jakub's lantern caught something ahead, metal rungs, a ladder climbing upward. The exit, he breathed. Soldiers' footsteps thundered behind them now, shouts echoing. Stop. Nie Rezak Sie. Marek didn't hesitate, he fired a warning shot down the tunnel, light exploding briefly against stone. Climb, he commanded. Jakub hoisted Anya up first, Natalia climbing right behind. Marek pushed them onward while firing another quick burst to keep the soldiers distant. Jakub reached the top and shoved open a hatch. Cold winter air rushed down, sharp and painful but filled with freedom. Go, he shouted back. Natalia emerged into a broken warehouse, snow filtering through shattered windows. He pulled Anya out, then reached for Marek's arm. Gunfire rang through the tunnel. A scream. Blood on ice. Marek stumbled the last few rungs of the ladder, Jakub grabbing him under the shoulders and dragging him up. Natalia gasped. Blood darkened Marek's coat near his ribs. No, she whispered. No, no, no. But Marek shook his head, teeth gritted. I'm fine, he lied. Below them, soldiers shouted, climbing the ladder. Jakub slammed the hatch shut and wedged a heavy crate over it. Boom. Soldiers banged from below, but the crate held. For now. Marek collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. Anya cried and jumped into his arms. You hurt. He tried to smile through the pain. Only a little. I've survived worse. Natalia pressed on the wound, her tears turning to ice on her lashes. You saved us again. Marek managed a faint grin. I'd do it, every time. Jakub scanned the warehouse frantically. We need to move. Now. Patrols could be anywhere. Where's the chalk star? Natalia asked. Jakub spotted it, a faint chalk mark on a narrow side door. They hurried toward it, Marek leaning against Natalia and Jakub for support. Every step he took left a small trail of red on the frozen floor. Into the unknown. Snow whipped outside as they burst through the door. The freezing air stabbed their lungs, but it smelled like hope, open sky, not stone. In the distance, lights. Farmhouses. Freedom. Behind them, the warehouse echoed with the soldiers still trapped below. They pushed forward into the storm, no clear path, only the promise of another breath. If the bridge had been the border of despair, this frozen field beyond it was the edge of a new beginning. Anya looked up at the swirling snow, whispering. The stars are falling. Natalia kissed her head. No, sweetheart. They're lighting our way. Marek stumbled but kept going. Jakub kept watch behind, knife drawn, ready to defend what hope remained. And the wind, though cold and merciless, sang a wild hymn of survival. They had done the impossible. They had crossed the river. But danger was far from gone. The world ahead was unknown. And dawn, still a distant dream. The storm grew wilder as the four figures pushed deeper into the snowy fields beyond the river. The cold air burned their lungs, and the snow stung their eyes like shards of glass. But every step carried them farther from danger, and closer to hope. Jakub walked ahead, knife ready, his lantern swinging like a tiny star in the storm. Natalia held Anya's hand tightly, guiding her tiny footsteps through knee-high snow. Marek leaned on his rifle like a crutch, each breath a struggle. "Just keep moving," Jakub urged. "We can't stop now." Marek managed a rough laugh between coughs. "I wasn't planning on freezing to death tonight." Natalia stayed close to him. The blood on his coat had darkened, stiff and alarming. "You're losing too much blood. We need shelter soon." Jakub pointed ahead through the swirling white curtain. "There, look. A house. A real one." Natalia squinted. Through the storm, a faint light glowed from the window of a distant farmhouse. A chimney puffed smoke into the bleak sky. "Someone is alive out here," she whispered. "Alive means they might help," Jakub replied. "Or they might shoot first," Marek muttered. They didn't have the luxury of caution. Death was close enough behind them already. The farmhouse. By the time they reached the door, Marek's strength was almost gone. Natalia hammered on the wood with frozen fists. "Please," she cried. "We're unarmed, there's a child." Footsteps thumped inside. The door cracked open, and a pair of cold, suspicious eyes peered out from beneath a wool cap. "What do you want?" a man's voice demanded. "We escaped the city," Jakub explained. "We crossed under the bridge. Please, we just need shelter, until morning." The man's gaze softened when he saw Anya shivering behind Natalia's coat. "Bring the boy inside before he turns to ice," he grunted, swinging the door open. Heat spilled out like a blessing. They hurried Marek inside. The farmhouse was humble, wooden walls, a stove blazing with fire, and a woman tending a pot of broth. The man introduced himself as Wiktor, a farmer who refused to abandon his land even when armies swept across Poland. His wife, Helena, rushed to Marek's side the instant she saw his wound. "Lie him down," she said firmly. "I'll get bandages." Natalia helped lower Marek onto a thick rug near the fire. He groaned, jaw clenched against the pain. Anya was wrapped in a wool blanket and placed near the stove to warm up. "You're safe now," Helena assured them. For the first time in days, Natalia allowed herself to believe it. A fragile calm. As Marek slept, bandaged and breathing steadily, Jakub and Wiktor sat by the table, speaking in low voices. "The bridge has become a steel cage," Jakub said. "Anyone who tries to leave is hunted." Wiktor nodded. "I've heard the gunfire at night. And the screams carried by the wind." "Do you know the resistance?" Jakub asked. Wiktor raised a brow. "You are looking at it." With a small chuckle, he poured Jakub a cup of hot tea. "Tomorrow, a convoy moves toward the border. Refugees, fighters, anyone who still believes Poland deserves to see spring again." Jakub's shoulders eased, relief washing through him. "Then we have a chance." Natalia's quiet vigil. Natalia knelt beside Marek, his hand resting weakly in hers. His breathing, though shallow, was steady. She brushed snow-melted hair from his forehead. "You saved us," she whispered. "You always do." Marek's eyelids fluttered open, heavy with exhaustion. "Did we make it?" he breathed. "We did," she replied. "We're safe." He smiled faintly. "Good. I was worried the river would get jealous." She laughed softly, tears warming her cheeks. "You rest now. Tomorrow we go somewhere new." His eyes softened. "As long as we go together." Natalia kissed his forehead. "We will. I promise." Dreams of April. Anya snored gently, curled like a cat near the warmth of the stove. In sleep, she no longer shivered. Natalia lay beside her daughter, watching the flames dance. She imagined spring. Green grass breaking through thawed earth. Birdsong instead of distant gunshots. cleaning mud from Anya's coat instead of blood. Jakub sat guard by the window, his hand resting around the phoenix medallion hanging at his chest. "We will rise again," he whispered. Outside, the storm finally began to die. A sliver of moonlight found its way through thinning clouds, illuminating the frozen world with a cold, silver peace. The road to morning. Before dawn, Victor woke them. "It's time," he said. Marek stood with Jakub's support, still weak but determined. Anya clutched her mother's hand, scarf wrapped high to her nose. Jakub carried what little they owned. Victor pointed toward a narrow road winding into the horizon. "Follow that until you see a red barn. Behind it, the convoy waits. If anyone questions you, show them this." He handed Jakub a small cloth patch, embroidered with a white eagle. "The symbol of those who refuse to surrender," Victor said. Natalia hugged Helena tightly. "We owe you our lives." Helena squeezed back. "Then live them well." And so they walked. Into the pale sunrise they went. For refugees, battered but unbroken. The storm had passed. The sky was clearing. Marek looked over his shoulder one last time, gazing toward the distant frozen city, toward the bridge that had tried to cage them. "We survived," he said quietly. Natalia answered with a gentle smile. "And now, we begin." Jakub steadied Marek as they continued across the snowy plain. Anya laughed suddenly, her voice ringing like a tiny bell. "What is it?" Natalia asked. Anya pointed up. Snowflakes drifted softly from the brightening sky, not harsh or biting, soft and light. "Winter is saying goodbye," she said. Natalia squeezed her hand. "Let it go. Spring is on its way." And together, they walked toward a future that no war could freeze forever. Toward warmth. Toward safety. Toward tomorrow.